High in the Himalayas along the Nepal-Tibet border sits the Rasuwa district. It is a region defined by its precarious topography, steep, terraced hillsides cut by deep river valleys. This specific mountain pass serves two vital roles. It is heavily developed as a central hub for hydropower generation, and it also operates as the primary northern gateway to the sacred Mount Kailash. Because of that sacred destination, thousands of international pilgrims traverse these narrow, rocky trails every year, relying heavily on the local terrain and infrastructure to complete their journey safely. Then, a massive displacement of water broke loose from the Tibetan border. A towering wall of thick, muddy debris surged directly down the gorge. This cross-section of the river valley illustrates the sheer volume of the strike. The data shows that the water level spiked by 9 meters in exactly 30 minutes. The speed of the surge, combined with the relative silence of the approaching water, meant the immediate geography was stripped away before authorities could issue a single warning. The initial wave hit during the pre-dawn hours. The mountain settlements dotting the riverbanks were entirely asleep when the water arrived. When the sun finally rose, the scale of the destruction became visible. Entire communities and paved roadways lay buried under thousands of tons of wet mud. The volume of heavy debris, packed with boulders and timber, proved too much for the natural confines of the Trishuli River Valley, causing the water to overtop its banks and consume the flat land around it. The floodwaters violently remodeled the geological footprint of a heavily trafficked international border in a matter of minutes. Tracing the surge south along the Trishuli River, the flood sequentially leveled Syabrubesi, Timore, and Nuwakot. The transit network collapsed, sweeping away 19 critical bridges. Simultaneously, 6 major hydropower stations took direct hits, rendering the region's energy grid completely inoperable. With the bridges gone and the power severed, the surviving communities found themselves physically severed from the rest of the country. The Nepali army and police immediately launched rescue operations, attempting to push into a disaster zone that now had no functional points of entry. Without ground access, rescue teams had to rely almost entirely on helicopters. Pilots were forced to thread through narrow, volatile gorges with no safe landing zones to winch stranded locals out of the mud. The destruction of the transit and power infrastructure locked victims and rescuers into an isolated, high-altitude pocket, complicating every evacuation and supply drop. Beneath the staggering infrastructure losses is a heavy human toll. Police on the ground confirmed 270 dead in the immediate aftermath. Yet the most daunting figure is the 403 individuals who remain entirely unaccounted for, swallowed by the debris field. Nearly 400 of those missing individuals are Indian nationals, pilgrims who were caught midway through their sacred journey to Kailash Mansarovar. The true weight of this disaster sits with the hundreds of families across Nepal and India, watching the news and waiting for a phone call that may never come. As the rescue efforts continue at ground zero, the millions of gallons of displaced water have created a secondary, moving threat. This map tracks the ongoing flood path as the water exits the steep mountain elevation. Moving out of the Trishuli, the surge swells into the broader Narayani River. The momentum carries the water directly across the international border, pouring into India's Gandak river system. In response to this incoming volume, authorities in the downstream Indian states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh have issued urgent flood alerts. These downstream communities are heavily reliant on the riverbanks for daily life, leaving densely populated areas exposed to sudden surges traveling from the north. The sheer interconnectedness of these river systems means a localized structural failure in the Tibetan mountains actively triggers a massive emergency across 3 separate countries. The rivers in Rasuwa are returning to their normal levels, but the crisis left behind in the valley is far from resolved. Because hundreds of people remain buried or missing in the rough terrain, the casualty figures are actively changing day by day. For the families searching the debris and the downstream cities bracing for the rising tide, this flood is an ongoing tragedy with a final cost yet to be determined.